things, one of the greatest ways that I've found to study the Bible is to insert yourself into the story to feel what they're feeling. And so for these people, if you imagine for a moment in Exodus chapter 12, there's this Israelite family. They've been in bondage and captivity for a long time. It's a small family, mom, dad, 3 kids. They're listening to Moses talk about this last plague that's coming. And he tells them that God is going to come through one night. He's going to comb through all of Egypt. And when he does, he's going to take the firstborn son from every household. And as soon as these parents are hearing that, they grip their oldest son tight. He was the firstborn. They continue to listen to Moses talk, and he says, but there's really good news for us, those of us who are God's people, those who are called by his name. God has made a way that your son's life can be spared. All you've got to do is raise up a young lamb and then slaughter it. And once that lamb is killed, you will smear its blood on the doorpost of your house. You'll go inside that night, and your son, your household will be passed over. So the family gets together. They listen to what Moses had said, and they go to Tractor Supply. I don't know what kind of stores they had back in Egypt, but they get a young lamb. And when they walk back to the house, the kids are starting to try and name it. Mom and dad are saying, no, not a good idea. The oldest son would be the one that took care of it. Because in this culture, the oldest son would be the one who would take care of the father's house. So he's raising this young lamb. And as they get closer and closer to this day, at some point, the young son and dad are having a conversation. And he says, Dad, can we keep him? And the father looks at his son so intently, and he says, no, because for you to live, he's got to die. And there's a weightiness and a heaviness to it. They would end up slaughtering the lamb. They would smear the blood on the doorposts of their home. And then they would have to go into the home and just wait. If you ever waited, you know how uncomfortable it can be. They would have to wait in this moment. They would hear cries in the distance as sons would begin to die. And all they would be left to do is have this thing called faith, to believe that if God said if they put blood on the doorpost, that they would actually be passed over. The night passes. Their son is still there. And they celebrate. And this is where the Passover celebration first began. Yeah. And so what they celebrate, when people celebrate Passover, is they celebrate what you and I are talking about here today. Is the fact that because of what Jesus did, he is the lamb that was slaughtered, whose blood would go on the doorpost of your house and mine, because the blood on the doorpost would signify that this house belongs to God. It wasn't about how spiritual the Israelite people felt. It wasn't about how messy the inside of their house was. It wasn't about how moral or good they were or how many times they went to church. It was whether or not blood was on the doorpost of their home that determined whether or not they were passed over. Yeah. And the blood didn't just sit on the outside. No, the blood was just an external sign of what was going on the inside of the house.